Hey, welcome to the show. Great lineup today. Two amazing authors talking about their book. And, these guys have been featured in Fire Engineering, Firehouse Magazine. They've actually written an article for the National Volunteer Fire Council, been on other podcasts from the Firefighter Toolbox, none other than Chief Kerrigan out of Pennsylvania, Lieutenant Moss out of St. Louis. Today they're going to talk to us about how physical fitness can help with our mental and emotional fitness as well. And while we're on the subject of health, you can tell I have a cold. So most of the show, it's probably going to sound like I'm talking through my SCBA, but we'll make it through quite well, and we're glad you're here, and we are blessed to have these two gentlemen with us.
You're tuned in to Yucked Up with your host, John Stone, a.k.a. Sarge, where we talk about how things can get all yucked up in seconds on any given call. This is where we reach out to the first responders who aren't reaching out for help and show them how to get the yuck off.
That's right. We are here with Dan Carrington and Jim Moss. Dan is a Chief Fire Officer. Jim is a Lieutenant. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us. We're honored.
Guys, we heard in the intro there, that you guys have launched this amazing book, Firefighter Functional Fitness. Jim, what really inspired the book, and who's it for, and why should our fire departments really be encouraging this?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how things come together. Well, Dan and I met through posting things on social media about making fitness functional for firefighters. We were both on Twitter, and we kind of separately were doing that. He's in Pennsylvania. I'm in St. Louis. So he reached out to me, actually, and he said, how about writing an article together? We did so. It got put out on Fire Engineering Online. That article was called 4 Fundamentals of Firefighter Functional Fitness, which it basically laid out our 4 pillars that we have in our book: physical fitness, recovery, also nutrition and hydration as well. So we did that, and then we said, I think we got something going here. So we ended up deciding to write an 8-part article series, an online article series, which is based on our concept called the Big 8. And as we started writing that, we kind of looked at each other and said, all right, I think it's time to put this down on paper. We're gonna write a book. So, hundreds and hundreds of hours later, that's what came about, pouring our passion into it. And it came out in June of 2016, I believe. Now it's in 25 countries worldwide and fire departments, fire academies all across the U.S. So it really grew organically. It started organically, and it's grown to something bigger than we ever thought it could be. And it all came back to, our basic mission of wanting to create a healthier fire service, one firefighter at a time.
And Dan, is it one of those things that every firefighter should read? Could you almost make it mandatory reading for the staff?
If you're asking my opinion, I absolutely believe it's something every firefighter should read. I think the reason I say that is because it's written by firefighters for firefighters. So it can be used on an individual level, on a company level, on a department level, organizational level. I think it applies to every single, I don't even look at just firefighter. I think every single first responder, right from the rookie right on up to the fire chief, the 30, 40-year veteran. There is something in the book for everybody, in particular going into the different types of categories that we've identified, where you fit in the fitness and health chain, so to speak, whether you're completely deconditioned or you already consider yourself an occupational athlete, and several stops in between. It has something for everybody. So I think from a cognitive perspective, from a physical perspective, I think it's one of the reasons why we're entering into like the college curriculums and so forth now, because it's not just a book you read, it's a reference that you'll use for years and years. So I read it, from time to time and get ideas from it myself. So I think, it applies to every firefighter, I would say every police officer, every EMS professional, military personnel, anybody at all, regardless of occupation, that wants to get themselves more, what we like to say, functionally fit for life in general.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm one of those old crusty guys, and so, back in our days, we back in our day, we'd show up to the firehouse in the morning. We'd do our check out our equipment and stuff, and we'd start already thinking literally about food before exercise, right? And so, we'll send the ambulance up to the store or something, or we'll stop on the engine on the way back, and we'll pick up whatever we need for lunch and dinner. And we may or may not make it to the gym that day. We half-heartedly try, even if we did make it. So, kind of what else does the book include, right? Does it give us the tools for when we're doing those type of things where we can kind of help not just the individual, but maybe the entire crew or that shift kind of get into a routine?
Yeah, exactly. So that's funny that you mentioned that food's usually the first thing on a firefighter's mind because we solve all of our problems at the kitchen table, right? All the world's problems we have lined out and we know the solutions. So we came up with a comprehensive approach. I mentioned before our 4 pillars, right? The physical fitness pillar, rest and recovery pillar, hydration, and then also nutrition. And nutrition is definitely one that every single person, whether you're a firefighter or not, nutrition is definitely what we fight with and battle with the most in trying to achieve overall wellness and fitness. And so we dedicated an entire chapter to that. We're not nutritionists, we're not dietitians, so we don't line out specific meal plans, but we do general principles of nutrition success. And we try not to use the word diet, because diet, sounds like it's like a 2-week program or a fad. But we try and give first responders the basics of nutrition. And we have 25 success nutritional principles at the end of our nutritional chapter that really break it down into simple bite-sized chunks for everyone. Another thing I wanted to say is that, with our comprehensive approach, we do have those 4 pillars. But one of our focuses is that we wanted to encourage firefighters and give firefighters the mindset and tools for increased longevity, right? So it's not just for an aspiring firefighter who wants to get fit to pass the, when I took it, it was called the physical agility test or Phoenix test or CPAT, whatever you want to call it, the physical test to get on the job. So it's much more than that. It's about having a career of longevity so we can all retire, whether we're paid or volunteer, paid on call, whatever. We need to make sure we're enjoying our retirement, living longer, and having an overall sense of wellness, not just, the 20 or 30 years that we put into the job, but, hopefully 20 or 30 years after we retire as well.
Yeah, I would say that we definitely want to take the approach that before we do anything from the physical or standpoint, we have to have our attitudes right as well. So we spend a lot of time focusing on the mind. We have a chapter dedicated to what we call our cornerstones: attitude, accountability, and action. So in terms of helping firefighters prioritize and encourage, I think it's important for all of us to be reminded and remember that everything starts first individually in your own mind, and you have to have those tools in place, so to speak, before you ever pick up a weight or make a change to your diet or what have you. So we definitely want to make it a personal approach, and we get that we all face struggles from time to time and need that encouragement. So we try to add that in there as well.
Yeah, and that's a pretty important part of how all this comes together. I mean, I read an article that the both of you wrote as well in the National Volunteer Fire Council for healthy body, healthy mind, and you mentioned it just a few minutes ago. You were like, you don't want to call it a diet or a fad, right? Because it truly is a lifestyle change. For me, and in my journey and dealing with PTSD and these type things, I had isolated myself and sat in my office and got real good at video games and, pretty much gained a considerable amount of weight. I was about 300 pounds. And, something triggered that I needed to make a change. And I'll talk about those things in a later episode. But I found cycling, and I found that, by eating healthy and by cycling, 3-4 times a week, I lost 100 pounds. I got down under 200 pounds and was quite happy about that. But it truly was a lifestyle change, right? It wasn't just like you mentioned, it wasn't a fad. It wasn't a diet, because a lot of times those things fail. And I've even noticed now that it's easy to kind of fall back into old habits, right? I mean, I've actually, I'll honestly admit I've put on 20 pounds. I've been traveling for work. I haven't been riding as much. And those are all just excuses. I know, because there's a gym in every hotel, and I could be working out. But it truly is being part of that lifestyle change and being dedicated to that lifestyle change that can truly make the difference.
Exactly. And what Dan already mentioned and you said too is that, the first thing that you had to do is to decide, right? You had to get your mindset right. And so that's so important. And I bet now you say you're traveling more and you've gained just a little bit of weight back, but I bet when you don't, put in the time cycling or time out on your bike, you kind of miss it, right? And it's become such a part of your routine that it actually, it's hard to not do it every day, right?
Oh, it is. And, it's funny because, I go through, I guess, withdrawals of the bike, right? I truly miss
right.
riding for a number of reasons, not just the exercise, but, the exercise gives me a way to kind of get out of my own way for a couple hours a day, right? I get out of my own head and I just get out and I focus on the bike. I focus on the goal, and I'm completely disconnected, minus the fact that I have some technology on the bike to help with tracking distance and time. But other than that, I stay completely disconnected. So I get out of my own way. And then I was just talking with a coworker earlier today about this very topic, actually, probably because we were doing the show and it was on top of mind. And I told him, I said, I started traveling a couple months ago a lot more. And the first trip I took, it was like we were having these big dinners, every night. And these big
right.
dinners included, and they were like 3-hour-long dinners, it felt like. And, of course, they included alcohol. And after about day 3, I finally looked at the guys and I was just like, guys, can we do something light tonight? Because my body just can't take, all this heavy food and alcohol,
right.
Day after day after day. So that was kind of a real paradigm shift for me and made me kind of think, wow, this is really working. I've lost 100 pounds. My lifestyle is truly changing when, the old John might have been more than happy to sit there for a whole week and eat and drink. Now suddenly I'm like saying no and looking for that healthier alternative.
Right. It came back to your mindset, right? And it came back to, your lifestyle change and the discipline that you're wanting to employ.
It's important for people to understand, I think you can, when you want to make a change and you've got that set in your mind, you can also still, there's the risk of setting yourself up for failure too. I mean, you can set yourself up for success, or you can set yourself up for failure. And that's why we like to profess or teach, making small, manageable changes and not trying to go, in your case, you're not going to go from 300 pounds to 190 pounds in a week.
Exactly.
And you have to, and maybe that's an exaggeration, but you have to have the right approach so that you can enjoy the little successes that you earn and build on those. And that kind of takes that whole physical and brings it over into the mental and keeps you motivated and keeps you moving. I mean, I'm at a point where I feel, I know how good I feel when I train. And I also know how guilty I feel if I quote unquote fall off the wagon for a day or two. So there's that personal, positive peer pressure that I have going on in my head. But I think it's important that people set themselves up for success rather than failure, and that way they keep the motivation moving forward.
No, I agree. That was one of the things for me when I started was I bought this bike and I didn't know anything about cycling. I knew how to ride a bike, but there's a difference in cycling and riding a bike. And I didn't know anything about it, but it was funny because I got on it and I was like, well, what do I do? Where do I go? And I kind of came up with this mantra of just pedal, right? And just literally just pedal. Eventually you'll figure out where you're going and what you want to go do. And then like to your point, I set small goals, right? And I know these landmarks don't mean anything to anybody listening, but you'll understand the point that, it was like, well, I'm just going to go to the high school and back. Because to me, that seemed pretty far, but on a bike, obviously it wasn't that far. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going to go to the hospital and back. And I just set these little goals. And then as I got into riding in groups, it was, oh, well, I want to do a 50K, 30 some miles. And then it was, oh, now I want to do 100K. And so, and then I heard, just that the Internet's a wonderful source of information, but can be very risky. So it's awesome that there's a book like yours that can give us good, scientific information too, because I was out, reading about, what's healthy weight loss, right? Is 8 to 10 pounds a month good? Should I expect more? Setting my own expectations, right? And it really became those little goals of, every time I would step on the scale and I was no longer in the 260s, I was in the 250s, or then I was in the 230s, right? And then, the goal was to get under 200. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't care if it was 199. I just wanted to be out of the twos. And so it was incremental, along that. And then, the other part that really kind of pulled in was, really, and you talked about, yourself peer pressure and how you feel guilty was, for me, it was the accountability of being part of a club. And whether that's a cycling club or a gym membership and you got a group of guys you go work with, you have to make, and at least that for me, I had to make myself accountable to someone other than me. So I published on social media, hey, I'm starting this. Here's my goal. In a year, I want to lose 100 pounds and ride 100 miles. That was my goal. And so once I published it, then I had all these people around me, and I was surprised at the support that I was getting from people that were like, dude, what can we do to help you, do this? And if you want to ride 100 miles in a day, you need to start practicing 35 miles and 65 miles and 75 miles. And the support group just kind of came out of the woodwork. And I have to assume that even within our departments, once we change this culture and this mindset, we're going to have that peer support and that accountability amongst each other.
Exactly. And I love that you brought up the social element about it, of cycling with other people and other people encouraging you and wanting you to reach your goals. And it's the same thing within Firefighter Fitness. Once someone puts a goal out there, and I also like how you mentioned you put it out there, you wrote it down, whether it was on a piece of paper or whether it was in a tweet or a Facebook post or whatever, you put it out there and you made yourself vulnerable, right? You let other people know your goals. And so that's a huge first step in success, in fitness and health. But the social element that you're talking about, letting other people know and having other people that you ride with, I'm sure was huge, for not only your physical, pushing yourself physically, but also for your emotional well-being and having that inner connectedness. And that's one of the things that we encourage firefighters as well, is to work out, if you're a career firefighter working out on duty as a crew, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just having that interaction, with your fellow brothers and sisters and putting in some type of physical struggle, that you can each go through. Because I think nowadays, with all of our technology, all of our, tablets and smartphones and all those different things, I think, we tend to isolate ourselves more instead of, connecting with others more. With all those smart devices, I think we tend to isolate ourselves more. And so, unfortunately, when we do that, we cut ourselves off from other people when we should rather be, doing something physical, with each other, working out or doing some type of hands-on training or drilling, whether it's ground ladders or some hose or something like that as firefighters, that interaction with each other really, pays dividends in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's even beyond accountability on that level. it's a great way to encourage others to take a better approach toward their health and fitness. And, you know, I mean, what better example can you set than your own example? And like, I'm not just going to talk about this. I'm going to do it. And it's good for you. And check it out. You should try it too. Right. And we're all in this together. We need to take care of each other, and let's get out there and do something. And, there's no better way in our profession to get something across than to live it. So I think it's just, the dividends are just exponential. And when you add in, I guess our overall philosophy really that is an approach of moderation. Don't beat yourself up. It's a lifestyle of moderation. So, it's very rare that Jim or I will tell you, you cannot do this or you cannot do that. There's one or two instances, for example, that we might say, no, you should never, ever, ever do this. But outside of that, we're all human beings, and, you know, we understand, you know, we have to have a little treat every once in a while, whatever that is for you. So, you know, it's about not beating yourself up, and it's about encouraging others through your own example, I think.
Yeah, and Jim, I noticed that, you know, in one of your 10 mental health benefits of exercise, you'd listed that exercise helps, you know, you get to sleep faster and sleep better. And one of the things, as we come back from scenes and we go home, you know, first we isolate, right? And we talked about how, you know, exercise, you know, gives us that social dynamic and keeps us from isolating. But one of the other things is a lot of times we don't sleep well, right? And if you know, that has a cascading effect. And so, you know, through, you know, exercise and, you know, really kind of driving yourself, you know, we then improve that quality of our sleep. You know, our mental and emotional and physical health benefits from that. You know, what do you see, you know, out in the field and from folks that you've talked to around, you know, just how mentally, you know, their exercise routines have, you know, really kind of affected their lives?
So, yeah, we already mentioned the social interaction of, you know, I know with my crew, I like to encourage us all to try and work out together. That doesn't mean we're doing the same exact thing together. You know, some guys might like to run. I might like to do, you know, more of the stuff that we do in our book. But so there's that social element, but there's also, that act of encouraging each other, right? Of doing it together, putting in the struggle, together. Because let's face it, we don't fight as many fires as we used to as firefighters, you know. The fires of the 70s and 80s and stuff like that, you know, were removed from that like 30 or 40 years. We don't get to be in battle with each other as much. And when we're on the fire team together doing those things, we get to share in that struggle. And when we have that shared struggle, there's more camaraderie built. So I think, since we don't have those fires, there's a missing element within the fire service. And so when we put each other through some type of workout or physical fitness, or whether we drill or do some hands-on training together, those are elements in which we're struggling together, right? We're sweating, it's physical exertion, and that shared struggle is what builds that camaraderie amongst each other. In our book, we do talk about sleep, as you mentioned, and how it can be very elusive for firefighters. I currently am at one of our busier firehouses. I can be on the ambulance and the fire truck. You know, I go back and forth between the two as a career lieutenant at my fire department. But I also have a 6-month-old baby too, and so who doesn't sleep all that well. So really, I try and get that sleep in when I can. One of the things I try and do that's probably most effective is stop using my tablet or smartphone before I go to bed, you know, so it's not right up until I go to sleep. And another thing I do is to set a good bedtime. You know, I might sound like an old grandpa, but, you know, trying to go to bed at 9:30 or 10, trying to get that solid 8 hours of sleep if I can is what I try and do. And, you know, there are some firefighters that will say naps are bad for you, but I think naps are good for the body. And research has proven, you know, that a 20 to 30 minute nap every day is beneficial for the mind and body, and I'm sure for your soul too. So yeah, sleep can be elusive, but we do have steps in our book to promote better sleep. And as we know, sleep disruption, sleep deprivation really affects us at the hormonal level, and it can affect so many other things. When we lack sleep, it affects our mood. When we lack sleep, it affects our food choices. We tend to want to get more convenient foods that are filled with more calories, more sugars, more unhealthy fats. So it really affects us in so many ways. So that's one of the things as first responders, as firefighters, we all need to really focus on is getting better sleep.
I think we could probably sum it all up by saying, as we said before, that everything is connected. So yeah. If your approach is not comprehensive, if it doesn't address all of our pillars, so to speak, and if we're only just working out, but we're not taking care of ourselves in the other ways we need to, we're not going to be at our optimum performance and longevity level. Everything's connected: the physical, the mental, the nutritional, all of it. It's all connected. So we need to address all of that.
So if I'm an individual firefighter, at a department, and I'm listening, to the show today, and I maybe even, I buy the book and I'm all excited about this, but I'm just, I'm one guy in a department, right? Do you guys have programs, or is there ways to, get some sort of a workshop to get the whole department involved? How do we engage in that?
Yeah. So if you go to our website, firefighterfunctionalfitness.com, we do have a separate sub-page under there called workshops or programs. You can click on that, get more info about what we offer. We typically offer an 8-hour workshop or a 16-hour 2-day workshop, to where we'll actually come to your fire department, your organization, conference, whatever, and we'll do interactive, hybrid of lecture a little bit, and then we'll actually do some physical fitness. It's not like a constant 4 hours of physical fitness straight, but we're going to break down the Big 8 concept that we have in our book, show firefighters how to better implement it at their fire department. And we also show a lot of using equipment, fire equipment, ladders and hoses and the like for physical fitness, and proving that we as fire departments, as firefighters, we don't have to have, a $25,000 gym with, expensive machines or treadmills and all these different things. We like to keep it really simple, really practical when we come out to fire departments and deliver our workshops.
You mentioned your website there, but I want to, and we're going to put all this information down in the show notes as well. But I definitely want to give everybody an opportunity to really understand where to find you guys. So if you could give us your website and any social media links, one more time, so we make sure everybody has that.
Yeah, I'll let Dan give it out. I've been talking too much anyway.
But the website, again, is firefighterfunctionalfitness.com. And you can also, as Jim said, you can connect to us to request more information about the workshops through that site. I'm telling you, we respond to everybody within 24 hours or less with very detailed information. I would also add that we don't have any issues, within those parameters that we generally have to customize our programs to what your needs are as well. May not just be physical fitness. It may be more directed at motivation, attitude, nutrition, what have you. We work with you to do that. All of our social media, I believe, Jim will correct me if I'm wrong, but all of our social media handles now are at Firefighter F Fit. So all one word, at Firefighter F Fit. So we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook, and you can reach us through that handle on all three of our social media platforms, as well as feel free to email us at firefighterfunctionalfitness@gmail.com. We're very accessible, and as I already mentioned, we try to respond to anybody as soon as we can, certainly within 24 hours or less. We try to get back to you. So questions, comments, start up a conversation, request information on the book, on the programs that we can come out and provide for you. All of it can be done through those means.
No, like I say, we'll make sure that we post all that down in the show notes too, so everybody has access to that. And so now we come to a fun part in the show here. At least it's fun for me. I'll put you guys on the spot. You know, I typically ask all my guests to give us a word that everybody can kind of take away, and then so we'll start with Jim. Jim, one word and why that word?
For me, it is all about mindset. Before you can make your body go anywhere, you have to make the decision to make your body go where you want it to go. So for me, it's all about mindset, and I would argue that your physical fitness, your well-being is 80% mental, if not 90% or more. And then the rest, everything you do from actually exercising, working out, your food choices, your hydration choices, your sleep choices, everything after that is all based on your mindset and how you want to change your lifestyle and improve your lifestyle. So, for me, it all comes back to your mentality, to your mindset.
Oh, that's awesome. And Dan, your word, sir?
Oh, he stole my word.
So I'll give you one. I'll give you one if you don't have one, Dan.
No, I have one. I'm going to play off of Jim's, and I already had this thought in my head anyway. So I would offer you a little bit of more aggressive encouragement, so to speak, by giving you the word obligation, because I believe, and Jim believes, that as firefighters, as public safety professionals, regardless of your particular sector, whether you like it or not, you are held to a higher standard. And as far as I can tell, you chose that path as a firefighter. So we have to remind ourselves that we're obliged to a lot of people besides ourselves in choosing the path that we've chosen. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, of course, they all depend on you to be at your optimal level, to be healthy and fit for what's going to be asked of us. So it's important, in my opinion, that we all remember that we have taken on an obligation that is what I consider to be over and above what maybe a civilian obligation would be in certain areas. So it's a good reminder everybody needs to hear every once in a while.
Absolutely. No, that is awesome. And gentlemen, I thank you so much for being willing to come on the show and share your knowledge and wisdom with us. And definitely we'll make sure everybody knows how to get out there and get in touch with you guys and look at the book, and keep up the good work. And we look forward to all the future information you guys are going to be feeding out to us.
Oh, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. And as you can tell, we're passionate about what we do and wanting to create healthier firefighters. So we're very honored that you had us on. So thank you.
Yeah, very much appreciated, sir. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Yucked Up with your host, John Stone, a.k.a. Sarge. Join us next time to hear more great stories and helpful hints on how to get the yuck off.